tonight, WWE presents another edition of Monday Night Raw from Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, inside the WWE ThunderDome. Now, it's a very, very interesting edition of Monday Night Raw because obviously Monday Night Raw is usually in chaos. We've spoken time and time again about Raw being in chaos the night before, the day of, hours before, minutes before, Raw going on the air with the second and third hour being rewritten during the first hour of Monday Night Raw. That's par for the course when it comes to Monday Night Raw, right? But this time, everything has been thrown into turmoil only a few hours before the show has gone on the air because, of course, Drew McIntyre is not going to be physically there on Monday Night Raw tonight due to his positive test result that was announced on social media a few hours ago. We did a video discussing it. Be sure to check that out on the channel. Subscribe, bottom right-hand corner to check that out. So, Drew McIntyre has been announced to be there. Now, Drew McIntyre previously was scheduled to actually face Randy Orton on this show. At one point, there were discussions that it was actually going to be for the WWE Championship. There was discussions that actually it was going to be a rematch that we'd seen all of last year. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton competing for the WWE Championship. Then there were reports that it wasn't just for the WWE Championship. It was the case of the left hand not really knowing what the right hand was doing. It was a lot of confusion, but then any chance of that match happening whatsoever got pretty much diminished when it was announced that WWE Champion Drew McIntyre had tested positive. That was announced only a few hours ago. So that match, of course, has been cancelled. There have been rumours and reports that WWE was actively looking for a big name replacement to replace McIntyre in this main event against Randy Orton because, of course, tonight Raw goes head-to-head with a college football championship game. So they still want to do the big match main event with Randy Orton. As opposed to who that could be Keith Lee, that could be Sheamus, that could be Jeff Hardy. I would assume it would probably be a big reputable name that they might be going for. But Triple H is going to be kicking off Raw tonight. That was the other big announcement, that Drew McIntyre, of course, tests positive. That match is off. Randy Orton will have a new opponent. Drew McIntyre is quarantining, but Triple H, the game will be returning to Monday Night Raw. He will be kicking off Monday Night Raw tonight. Now, some people might say, what does that mean? Triple H is going to be facing Randy Orton in the main event? I don't think so. I don't think that is going to be the case. Triple H hasn't openly said that he's retired, but I would assume at this point in his career, given the way that Triple H feels about performing, given that 2020 was the first year since 1996, I believe, that Triple H hasn't, or 1995, that Triple H hasn't had a match under the WWE umbrella. So Triple H isn't going to be wrestling Randy Orton in the main event. I think in reality, this surprise announcement that Triple H would be kicking off Monday Night Raw will probably have to do with one thing. That's NXT. Now, what does NXT have to do with all of this? Well, there have been lots of reports and rumours recently that Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley are scheduled to be called up to the main roster very soon. Now, if you recall, when WWE had their record low in 2018, what happened that very night? You had Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H all come out during that show. That was the infamous "You Are Now the Authority," that angle. But during that show, during that night, we also had Triple H reveal that several NXT names were going to be called up to the main roster. Those names included Ricochet, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa actually made appearances, EC3, Otis, and others, and a variety of other NXT talents were then called up to the main roster, specifically Monday Night Raw. So I think tonight we could see a similar scenario whereby Triple H kicks off Monday Night Raw and announces that it's a new year, and therefore Raw need to freshen up, and Raw is going to see new things, particularly those two names that I mentioned previously that were going to get called up to the main roster very soon, that being Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. I would assume, and my prediction is, that Triple H will be there to announce that Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley have been called up to the main roster and will be making their Monday Night Raw debuts tonight. That could possibly lend to a main event of Randy Orton versus Damian Priest. Now, this isn't a report, this isn't any insider information, this is just a fan trying to predict about what's going on in this chaotic world of WWE right now. So I think in reality that's going to be the case of Triple H kicking off Raw to announce the debut of those two NXT talents. I would maybe assume, I could be massively wrong here, I would assume that actually in reality that was always the case, because we had heard those rumours that Damian Priest was scheduled now to debut on Raw. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter mentioned about the next idea of Damian Priest on SmackDown being Kevin Owens' new best friend in the feud with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso and Paul Heyman. Obviously, there was that point of time where a couple of weeks ago, at one point, scheduled main event of SmackDown was to be Kevin Owens and Damian Priest versus Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. That was nixed because Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, rightfully so, said the idea made zero sense. I mean, where is the logic that Damian Priest is suddenly the best friend of Kevin Owens? There is no logic there. So that to me makes total sense. I totally agree with that one. And then there had been the reports that because that SmackDown debut was nixed, what we were going to have instead was Damian Priest making his debut on Monday Night Raw. Last week on NXT's New Year's Evil in the opener, Damian Priest lost to Karrion Kross. That was his bookend in his NXT career, and he's destined for the main roster. So I think Triple H tonight on Raw will announce that Damian Priest is debuting, but another name too, that being Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley has been destined for the main roster for a very, very long time. A very long time. I think in reality, we're going to have her main roster official debut tonight. I know she's appeared tons of times on the main roster, especially going into last year with her feud with WrestleMania, over at WrestleMania with Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's Championship. That was the plan then. So I think tonight Triple H is going to announce that officially Rhea Ripley is a member of the Raw roster. I think that's probably going to be the plan there. It's going to be interesting, of course, because Rhea Ripley is one of the early odds-on favourites to win the Royal Rumble match, the Women's Royal Rumble match, in line with Bianca Belair as well. So that is certainly going to be fascinating, and frankly, Raw needs the shot in the arm when it comes to the women's division because the Raw Women's Championship has been essentially retired in recent weeks. We've barely seen anything of it. We really have barely seen anything when it comes to this Raw Women's Championship with Asuka recently. She's been busy feuding with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler over the Women's Tag Team Championship. She's had Charlotte Flair as a tag team partner. She's had Lana as a tag team partner. Really, and prior to that, in November at Survivor Series, she was feuding with Sasha Banks in Raw vs. SmackDown. And prior to that, I think it was the last time she actually defended her Raw Women's Championship, which was against Zelina Vega, and that was at Clash of Champions, I believe. That was all the way back in September. So it's certainly a shot in the arm. It's certainly something that is needed, I think, for the Raw Women's division of Rhea Ripley coming over and Damian Priest coming over. Both are names I think are needed for Raw. Will it solve Raw's problems? No two people are in the world, even if they were Steve Austin and The Rock coming back in their prime, would fix Monday Night Raw. There are substantial issues when it comes to how this show is put together, whether it's the last minute writing, whether it's the 3-hour format, whether it's the million recap packages we get during the show, whether it's the way they shoot TV backstage, whether it's the way they overly script their promos, overly produce their segments. All of it is a massive issue for Monday Night Raw, and two names coming up from NXT aren't going to fit it. Will they improve the show? They're very, very talented. If the creative is right, I would assume they would. That would be my concern coming into this is, are we going to get NXT's version of Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, or are we going to get WWE and Vince McMahon's version of Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley? That also would be a massive concern for me going forward. So I don't think Triple H being announced on the show, I don't think that is a situation where, it's going to be a scenario where Triple H was never planned, or this was rushed, or this was last minute, Triple H just happened to be there. I don't think that's the case. I genuinely do think this was part of the plan the whole time. I could be wrong. I'm sure we'll find out in the next couple of days. But I would probably assume that this was always the plan, because it was always the plan to have Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley come to the Red Brand on Monday night. I would assume that they probably were going to keep it a surprise, but the reason they announced it is, of course, because Drew McIntyre's positive test. Now, as I mentioned about Drew McIntyre, despite his positive test, despite him quarantining for 2 weeks, he will probably be back for the go-home episode of Monday Night Raw, and he will still be defending his WWE Championship against Goldberg at the Royal Rumble. We will still see Drew McIntyre on Raw tonight. It has been announced by WWE and confirmed that despite this positive test, McIntyre will appear on the show. This will likely be via satellite or via Zoom call or pre-recorded on his cell phone or something like that. When WWE made the announcement that despite everything going on, McIntyre would appear on Raw tonight, some of the comments that were made about that were hilarious. Frankly, they were saying, "What? I thought he tested positive. I can't believe he's going to appear in the Thunderdome." Or, is he going to relinquish the WWE Championship? How dare they strip him of the WWE Championship for this illness? I can't believe they're going to do that. What are they doing? They're going crazy. It's not going to happen. Drew McIntyre isn't going to relinquish the WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre isn't going to appear inside the Thunderdome. It still is a pandemic. There still is a positive test for the virus. He needs to quarantine and self-isolate for 2 weeks, take several tests, and make sure that he doesn't test positive again. That is still the protocol. Nothing has changed about that. So McIntyre isn't going to relinquish the title. He's not going to lose the title, and definitely, he's not going to appear inside the WWE ThunderDome. That just isn't going to happen. That's just not going to happen. So it's going to be an interesting show. Certainly with the chaos, it's going to be fascinating to see what WWE does, how they put this show together. I no doubt will be watching very, very closely. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Triple H kicking off Monday Night Raw tonight on the USA Network? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So get involved with the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.